will certainly be beneficial to the students and to all of us in appreciating the nuances of law enforcement when perceived in juxtaposition to our criminal justice system. I thank you very much, madam, for accepting our invitation. Thank you very much and most welcome to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I request Kiran Bedi ma'am to deliver her lecture on the topic of law enforcement and criminal justice system. Respected madam, over to you.
Can we begin with the questions you have? I will unfold my views through the questions.
Nikhil, I invite you to start the question answer session. Or ma'am, if you want, you can firstly deliver your lecture and then we can subsequently take up the question answer session. Whatever is convenient to you, ma'am.
According to your schedule, Seema.
Ji.
1 minute. According to the schedule, I'm going by your schedule. You had the introduction greeting by Dr. Mittal, and then you had the welcome address, and then you have the questions. So you can go straight to the questions, please.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, no issues. Nikhil, I request you to start the question answer session.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. There is a question. Happy with the present model of police and prosecution in criminal justice? If yes, then why? If no, then what suggestion do you want to give to improve this? The same thing, the same policing system.
Your question is, if I get it right, are you happy with the present model of police and prosecution in criminal justice system? If yes, then why? And if no, what suggestions you want to propose to improve the same? Is that your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is that? Can I have your name, please?
My name is Nikhil, and I'm a student of law.
You're a student, Nikhil?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you sitting? Yeah. He's on the right. Where?
We the student, ma'am.
Okay, done. Yes, so if you say I'm happy with the present model of police and prosecution, no, I'm not. I'm pretty disappointed. And we are going through a very tough time. All of us are suffering individually and collectively. If yes, then why? I said, no, we're not. So what suggestions you want to propose to improve the same? Well, let's understand what is criminal justice system comprising of. It comprises of the courts, let's begin with the judiciary, the prosecution, the police, the prisons, and the people, which is the community. So it is a lot of 5 Ps: the police, the prisons, the people, prosecution, and then the judiciary. Now, I think there's something seriously deficient in all our Ps and the jail. If I would say, look at the policing, flawed investigations. Your next question is, flawed investigation is the biggest problem for conviction. What you suggest to enhance? So I'm going to combine a few, but you will certainly ask the next question, whoever was asked to. Let's look at the present model of policing. What is right and what is not right? I think something seriously wrong with policing here, and which we need to address, and you as law students need to be better informed. I'm not here for any populist lecture. I'm here to state what I believe and I see. I see very heavy political patronage in policing, number one. Very heavy. It's called heavy or it's heavy. It's heavy on the police, number one. Secondly, the policing is overworked. Political patronage has a lot of criminal elements in this. One of the researchers is saying more than 40% people who stood up for the elections had criminal records and they got elected. I have the details, so whatever I'm saying is based on my research and based on evidence. So number one, very heavy political patronage. We always have exceptions to whatever we say, and they're very worthy exceptions. So I want to do a caveat. So if I'm not satisfied with the present model, why? You asked me why. And the why is, number one, policing has a very heavy political patronage. It has just too many people with criminal records in it. The policemen have very long working hours, the research is showing. And if ever you want any research document, which on this I'm making a statement, you can call back my office and I will send you the document. Most of the policemen are doing 14 hours a day. Research is showing 14 hours a day. I have this document with me. It's a part of a report. And average number of hours worked by police personnel a day was 14, reported by, and only 13% in average working hours. 24% of the work more than 16 hours a day. And it said the Odisha police work 18 hours a day on an average, the highest among the states. MP and Jharkhand personnel clocked 11 hours, the least among. Now, status of policing, this is coming from where? The source is Status of Policing in India, Report 2019. It's based on a sample survey of 11,834 police personnel across 105 locations in 21 states. The survey was conducted by the Center for the Study of Developing Societies between February and April 2019. So with these working hours, policing is very seriously flawed. Long working hours. Third, there's total lack of technical support, enough technology support. Certain countries have now gone to goggles. They wear goggles and you can do face reading. You can trace a history sheeter straight if he's sitting in the car, or a gangster you can have. They call the smart goggles. So I don't want to mention the name of the countries, but there are already smart technology available. You got body cameras. That means if you're addressing a crime, you're getting recorded what you do and also getting recorded. So there's no false allegation if there is. So lack of technological support. Fourth, mass corruption. Along with a lot of political patronage comes mass corruption. And every day we have issues. That basically means the, and all sources of corruption, and everybody's involved. You again have very good exceptions, as I said, but mass corruption. Then you have very hostile laws. When a gangster or a criminal is released, he's not even put on conditional bail. He's just released. And not sound surety sometimes. You have Dubey's case of Uttar Pradesh. He was on bail. Did he have conditions on bail to say that he should report to the police every third day, or he should report to a certain place to see whether he's not indulging in crime? So there are no conditional bails. Sometimes the police officer is not, the prosecution is not even addressed, or even despite the opposition. I'm looking at only a recent case of gangster Dubey who was killed in an encounter. So we don't have a system of conditional bail for good behavior. So what happens is, with great difficulty, you get policemen, gangsters or these rowdies arrested, but they're released on bail unconditionally, sometimes even on personal bonds. Sixth, I have 10 points, so I'm on the sixth. I think you all need to know it's a very important forum, and I'm not here to pass my time. You must hear it right from the source, because I've spent 40 years policing. So as I said, good exceptions are always there, but the truth is this. Sixth point is postings and transfers. They're all linked with political patronage, and they're also linked with corruption. There was a Supreme Court judgment which talked about transfers and postings. That decision remains unimplemented across the states. There's supposed to be an establishment board for the rank below. They are somewhere very effective and somewhere not effective, where policemen are part of the establishment board. I've been a part of establishment board when I was with the Delhi police, and I know how we carefully went through postings of SHOs then. I do not know how well it is practiced. We scanned through every report of SHOs and then graded them A, B, and C. An establishment board which is headed by the police, the DG, the IG administration. It could be even DGP. It should be. So postings and transfers, and then HR policies. Human resource policies are very deficient. There's no career plan.
I think so. Ma'am has lost her network.
Are you listening? Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Now you are audible.
I was on the last point was in postings and transfers. Were you there with me at that? Should I go back? The point post. I was on the HR policies. Were you with me at that time? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am. HR policy.
Okay, good. Like the way you have in the corporate world, you have an HR manager. And HR manager is a very important director HR who looks at training, their welfare, the motivation, the inspiration, their capability, their potential, their upskilling. HR manager. We do not have a post called HR manager in the police department when it is a force of nearing 2 million people in this country. HR manager. Then we have a Supreme Court judgment, which is also known famously as Mr. Prakash Singh judgment, who is the former DGP of Uttar Pradesh and elsewhere, and which laid the parameters of postings, transfers, separation of investigation from crime, law and order. It is, and a security commission, a state security commission. I think it's more in breach rather than being in compliance. These are my key points, which are, I feel, very, very deficient. Now, what is it? There is something which is missing. Recently, 3 days ago, we had the Swachhta survey, where the cities have been rated in Swachhta. Do we have a Suraksha survey? We have a Swachhta survey, very good, which has now inspired states to be cleaner, which has made a long, long way. Imagine if this Swachhta had not been there, and in this lockdown period, where would half the population of India gone out to go for a toilet? Where would the men may have sneaked somewhere, where would the women gone? Thanks to the last 4 years of Swachhta and the toilet abhiyan, it just came at the nick of time, where 80% or more now and more have their own toilets. That is because of Swachhta Abhiyan, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. And it has taken thousands of crores to have brought a toilet into everybody's home, or community toilet nearby. But where is our Suraksha survey? Why should every state and district also not be judged and assessed even on a Suraksha survey? So I think there's a need for a Suraksha survey on the same lines as we do the GDPs and other questions. Then we need a shift from statistics to analysis. I was hearing another person in a particular assembly that we have fall in murder cases, or we fall. We look at the fall. If you remember, would we like to, when we had crimes against women, remember, women would not report rapes, and they would obviously not report domestic violence. There was no Domestic Violence Act. So where would they report? And rape issue got so much of social stigma that they did not report. Now, of large open reporting, encouraging people to report, major social media and social campaigns, and women being encouraged to report. Now, is that more rape, or is that more reporting? We do not know. We don't know. We need to do a survey and analysis. So if we would say crime bahut badh gaya, are we saying reporting badh gayi ya crime badh gaya? Do you mean to say we never had these rapes in these rural areas, the kind of rapes we are now getting reported, and the media reports in the media? I think we do not know the answer. Has the reporting increased, or has the... So I'm looking for only one factor of crimes against women. Are they reporting more, or has it increased? Yes, the brutality is becoming much more known. You remember Nirbhay case. The brutality got known because the mass media awareness and public awareness and the voluntary movement which came along with it. So I think we need to also understand not only statistics as data on number of crimes increase, we also need to do an analysis. What's behind it? Have the murders increased, or has more reporting improved? But is it a murder of passion or emotion? Or is it a murder for grain? Or is it a murder for brutality? Like some women are being today raped and murdered and thrown into the well and also made faceless so that they can't be identified. Or they can't speak who did it. So I think we need to analyze the patterns of crime, what kind of crimes are happening in each state and what kind of crime prevention patterns. So it's analytical. It's not just statistical. And last but not the least, what is happening in criminal justice system is that there is no hub which brings these pieces together. The prosecution, the prisons, the police, judiciary, and even the people. There's no hub. We need to create hubs at the district level, at the state level, and at the central level, and should be regularly conferenced on what's happening on all these fronts. Further, what is still very erratic is Mohalla committees, a part of mass movement of community policing, neighborhood watch groups, beat systems, police public partnerships, social workers as attachment with the police. We need a security fund. So I would come to that. We could come to the more questions. So I was thinking, and even recruitment of police cadets. Internships for students for policing. You do internships in the corporate world. Why not do internships at police stations? Why not do internships with senior officers of police department? So I think this is what I think I'm answering your first question, but I'm giving you the maximum factual information of, are you happy with the present model of policing? No. And prosecution? No. And then when it comes to delays in the cases, the data shows that it takes 122 weeks for one case to reach a judgment. It's again, based on this. I have a slide which takes you. And the source is Union Law Ministry. On an average, it takes 2.5 years for a judgment in a lower court. See this slide. So it takes 122 weeks for a case to reach the judgment. And the reasons are given here. Since it's a part of this presentation and it's going to be passed on the YouTube, the Facebook, you can download these. But it's this IMM study which says 41% of the time spent in court functioning. It has lots of details of what maximum time, where is it being sent. It's an IMM study, which I'm quoting. So as far as the second aspect is concerned, and prosecution, so if so, why? And what suggestions? I made some suggestions as we go along. So I would say I'm now basing when I say I'm not satisfied, I've said it on the basis of evidence, studies, surveys, reports. Okay, sir, your next question.
Ma'am, can I ask a question which is, sorry to break the chain, but this question is related to what you just said. When we talk about the lacuna in the policing model, ma'am, the most pressing thing is that people do not have faith, people do not have trust, they are fearful of the police. Ma'am, what are your views on that? How can we take care of that lacuna in the system?
Faith is earned. Faith and trust is earned. It's not demanded. It develops by itself. You cannot have faith in the police. Police itself is not believed. By Section 25 of the Evidence Act, police itself is not believed. Your 161 statements are not believed. I'm not believed. Even a confession made to me as a police officer is not admissible in the court. And after all these years of independence, we still have not considered our policemen trustworthy. So how do you expect the police people to trust? The parliamentarians have to come together. Now, if you say we cannot make this confession, the police will extract confessions, you can place safeguards, you can videograph. They'll say, oh, there may be a gun behind the videographer, but there may be a gun behind the back. Well, put all, have a camera behind the back also. So have a camera which is three-dimensional. And if he's admitting his crime, take him on board. Why are you not believing the police? So very well, he tells you the whole story, but he defends it. And you see the Nirbhay case? What? How long it took? And it was an open and a shut case. So you say trust. We ourselves as a country don't trust policemen. How do you expect? By law, we don't trust. Unless we change the law, automatically that will, and with safeguards, with video cameras, with independent witness, and proceed. Your case will prosecute much faster. Your prosecution and convictions will come much faster because the witnesses then resign. Witnesses don't come up against gangsters and terrorists, so they go scot-free. And you know how much long it takes, and you know he's committed. There's open and shut case. The rapist is known, and he's confessed it. But that confession or that statement made before, because ours is not a victim-centric system. Ours is accused-centric system. Unless we look, who defends the victim? The prosecution. But the whole Qiyamah is against the prosecution to make him fail. When he has a whole confession, when he has the evidence. So if a policeman records a false confession, he should be jailed. He should be made a criminal. So have the punishment so high that if a policeman dares to extract a confession wrongly or under duress, then he's committing a crime. Book him. But why keep the whole policing under suspicion? I've had so many cases before me as a police officer, as a deputy commissioner of police of 2 districts I did. I did a DIG range in Mizoram. I did a narcotics control bureau where gangsters used to be caught red-handed with so much of heroin, and they confessed. Well, in certain very few special cases where a confession made to superintendent of police, like in Customs Act, made to is valid. That is why certain convictions are higher there. Imagine the man is making a statement to me, but I cannot be believed. So I'm not saying you believe me. I say believe the policeman if he has followed the certain parameters of confessional recording. And then you have evidence. It will take you 6 months and the case is done. And the punishment will be right there given to you while the memory of the crime is still fresh in people's mind. The deterrence, as Professor Mittal talked about, would be very high. Deterrence would be very high while the memory of the crime is in your head, you have seen that person being punished in 6 months' time, given life term, or given a death penalty, or given a long-term imprisonment. It's very easy. The parliamentarians, the laws have to be changed by the lawmakers, but not by the lawbreakers. And I said that 40% of them are elected who have been alleged to have broken the law. So therefore, your question to answer is, I knew your questions would change the moment I give you this opening statement. I told my friend Isha, I said, they've got a lot of other questions. When I give you the opening statement through a question of yours, your questions follow-up will change. And it's happening. Because I'm telling you the truth. Nothing but the truth. Okay, your next question.
Good evening, ma'am. It is a matter of delight for me to be able to share screen with you today, because you have been an inspiration for not just me, millions like me. My question today is, flawed investigation is the biggest problem for conviction. What you suggest to enhance the investigation capabilities of investigation agencies?
Do you know when flawed investigation happens? When you somehow try and bring evidence for a conviction. If the policeman knows that he'll place the evidence as it is and he will not be disbelieved. As I said, I'm not saying you believe policemen or a prosecution person blindly. No way. I don't want injustice. And there are lots of policemen also who perpetrate injustice. We all know that. But if any lawbreaker perpetrates injustice, he must face the law. Because we are here to assist the court. Policemen, prosecutors are all to assist the court in arriving at justice. Place the evidence as it is. As it is. And video recorded as it is. even your statement recorded under 164 before a magistrate by the accused themselves is starting to getting rubbished. So I think we should add weightage to that. So I'm not here pleading for policemen to be believed. I would say make the law enforcers believable with evidence when you have that. And also I'm clearly saying again and again that if any one of them pad evidence, falsify evidence, or diminish or forfeit evidence, they are as much culpable as anybody else is. But that way is the only way you'll have a victim-centric. You'll have victim-centric just. At the moment, it is accused-centric, not victim-centric. Many times we are always on human rights of the accused. What about the human rights of the victim, which have been violated? Okay, next question.
Ma'am, it's an immense pleasure to be here sharing the screen with you. My question is, crime per lakh population has increased by 28% over the last decade, that is 2005 to 15. However, convictions have been low. What should be done to change this scenario? Thank you.
Haven't I explained it already?
Yes.
How can convictions be high when your whole systems or many systems are flawed?
Needs to be changed.
And then the delayed trial, where so many weeks, 122 weeks is one normal. There are cases which have gone on for 10. Why would the witness come again and again? And it's very witness-driven trial. Witness se keh diya. Witness irony, witnesses turned hostile. What action has been taken against witness turned hostile? Has any witness who turned hostile gone to jail? Have you heard of anybody? I haven't. I will be very happy to know, and I may be wrong. Has any witnesses, whole bunch of witnesses turned hostile? So why have you made me waste my time? Why are you wasting the court time? Your statements have been recorded. Videograph them. The onus now is on you to prove that you did it under pressure. As I said, have a 360-degree camera. So the whole thing is, I am presumed false, still I presume guilt, right. Why can't I begin with a balance? You don't presume me right, you don't presume me wrong. Give me an even platform. Place the evidence as it is. Don't trust me, don't disbelieve me. But you're believing in disbelieving. You're starting with the disbelief. So we need to readdress our issues. That is the reason, the conviction rate and delayed justice, because the courts are overwhelmed with cases. And then we have a very heavy low investment into our judiciary. I have a chart for you. See the investments being made, expenditures. Look at the judicial expenditure. A number, show them a chart of judicial expenditure. So we need courts. There are very large vacancies. No, this is women. Go to judiciary. Yes, is that no? Look at this judicial expenditure. This is the chart. Only Punjab, according to this report, only Punjab. This is from India Justice Report of 2019, done by the Tata Trust. You can go to the website and see. Except for Punjab, everybody else had more expenditure as a state, but less judiciary expenditure over last 5 years. All the grays is judiciary, all the yellows is the state expenditure, and police is the last. If you look at the last one, go to this last. Here, hang it here. Go here, go around. So yeah, only this 8.8 is Punjab. Which show me the language. Show me the language. Yeah, Punjab was the only exception among the large and mid-sized states which spent on the judiciary more than its state expenditure. All other yellows, they spent more but less on judiciary. Go back to the statement. Upar ki top statement. Go top, stop. Yeah. judiciary expenditure did not increase as much as the overall state expenditure is concerned. So with the result, you have literally 1/3 vacancies. So the infrastructure on digitization and so many things, obviously, because there's no money. Everything costs money. Judges, the courts cost money. They cost money, friends. So where's the money? Do we have the money? Is the citizen willing to pay a little more? I'll give you my one example today. We have laid down in Pondicherry drainage pipelines for sewerage collection, for sewage to go into the place, sewage treatment plant. You know, just that little portion where from the house clinic, from the house connection, little bit to the drainage, people have to spend their own money. But they don't do it. They create a septic tank. They make a septic tank and they make the toilet shit, their own home toilet shit, to go into a septic tank outside their homes. And then they call somebody else to come and take away the suck out through that suctions. You know, they call, what are they called? When they take away, they clean up the septic tank. The tanker comes, sucks it out. And you know what that tanker does? He takes away shit off all those septic tanks and goes and throws it in the drain. Some water drain, some water canal. And at shit, instead of going to a septic tank, because that little portion where people are not spending that little money to do the little connection to the drainage which is going into the under the road, they want government to spend that much money also. So we as an Indian culture have got so used to everything being done by the government. Many people can drink a bottle of liquor every second day, but they won't spend the money here this much to connect it to the drainage. Due to which all that sewage, instead of going to the sewage treatment plant, after the water to be treated and treated water going into some coolers, again used and recycled. These, and somebody sent me a message today. Ma'am, the Public Works Department is asked us to connect it to the main draw, otherwise they will block it and you will not be able to put it even to the sewage treatment plant. It'll have a backlash. So ma'am, please tell the public department to pay for it. I didn't answer him. Should they not spend their own money to connect it to the connection of the main drainage flow? Should they not feel responsible for it? Do you know why COVID is increasing today? Still in India? In India, why? Because people are not following the law. They're not observing the social distancing. Aaj Ganesh Chaturthi hai, go and see the road, what's happening on the road. They're still on processions. When he said, please celebrate at home, don't get out. But everybody's out. Shopping, mingling, celebrating. And what will happen? There'll be a huge spike. And each patient costs lots of thousands of rupees of public exchequer to be treated for COVID. Each person. Each needs a bed, a hospital bed, needs doctors, nurses, oxygen, ventilators, medicines, nutrition, and they want the treatment to be free. Even these people, they want treatment to be free. Those people who are violating social distances want free treatment. How will? Why? Why should everything come from the government? Why should you not pay? And you know what he said? I pay taxes. I want to ask him how much tax does he pay really? Just one, I think 1 crore people in a billion people pay income tax. We all pay indirect taxes, but just 1 something crore of people in India only pay income tax in a population of 1 billion people. This is our character. So the country is being administered with a very difficult national character, a character of irresponsible behavior in many cases. And COVID today is a result of this, because we are grappling with COVID here in Pondicherry. It's on a hike, despite the maximum beds used, private medical colleges co-opted, nursing colleges co-opted, all public health centers functioning. What do you do with these people who are passing on the disease to each other? Testing facilities ramped up. How much more? When you're told stay home, clean, have mask, and don't have distance. No, they're not having distance. Go see the roads today. Remember when the COVID lockdown was lifted, what happened? There was a 1 mile long outside a liquor shop, 1 mile long queue. And they were jostling with each other to get that bottle of liquor. And I saw many of them walking four liquor bottles, four. So friends, this is where we are today as a national character. Exceptions are there. Very worthy exceptions are there on whose shoulders this country is still running. But you are tiring them out. You're exhausting them. Okay, next question. Next question.
Please, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, am I audible? Right? Ma'am, it's yes, ma'am. It's insightful and enlightening to hear you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Kushal Kumar, please. Yes, ma'am. It's enlightening and it's very insightful to hear you. And ma'am, even I really believe that we need to revive and rebuild our character to change the moral policies of the nation. Ma'am, and to ask the question, ma'am, my question to you is that Karnataka High Court, ma'am, in January 2020, ma'am, said that the IPS officers lack basic knowledge of criminal law. So, ma'am, we have seen in the recent handling of this Sushant Singh Rajput case also, and there was 2 different FIRs, and police were not cooperating with the same institutions, were not cooperating with each other. So, ma'am, what do you think, ma'am, that how we can change the police policing system, and how we can change the training of the entire police system? And do you really believe that, ma'am, it's time that police authorities and the department need to be autonomous now, and with a very minimum check and balance?
Well, you talked about Sushant's case, and you talked about the IPS officers lacking basic knowledge of criminal law. Look, IPS officer is not an investigating officer. He's a very important supervisor. He's not a direct IO himself. Please understand that. IPS is a very important managerial leadership position, which ensures that the department has capable investigating officers, who ensures that there's a training policy, who ensures that there's posting and transfer policy, who ensures the welfare. He's not an IO. Please understand that. However, they're supervisors. Superintendent police is a supervisor, and sometimes, occasionally, rarely, he also starts investigating, depending. And the CBI is all officer-driven investigation. In CBI, the DIGs, the SSPs, they investigate. There's no doubt about it. But that's a specialized agency. Whereas in police stations, they're not specialized. They're law and order management, but there is no separation of law and order of investigation at the police station level. That's what I was recalling you, Mr. Prakash Singh's judgment of the Supreme Court, which said separate. For that, you need more manpower. Every police officer costs lakhs of rupees per month. Every constable costs not less than about 80,000 rupees a month. If you look at his uniform, his medical, his housing, his family care, so many things. He has to be well paid. Every constable costs not less than 82,000 to a lakh. Every public servant today to the public exchequer costs that much money. He may get 50,000 in hand, but if he goes to the hospital today and he gets an operation done, the whole bill is paid by the department. It's reimbursed. He gets his TA, DA, and by the way, even his dependent members, they're members of the centralized health schemes. So I'm looking at averaging. So there is no separation of law and order investigation at the police station level, because that costs money. We have money. We have money. We have money. Yeah, I have a solution. We have a solution. Let every member of this Indian community, or in every Indian, pay 100 rupees a year as security cess. Security cess, like we have an education cess, right? Let's have a security cess. And that be a fund which goes into every Indian, every person, every year gives 100. Calculate how much money we'll have. Let that money go into infrastructure of the police stations. Even 100 rupees, you try and get 5 rupees, try and get 10 rupees. even 100 rupees per year is called, all right, let's begin with security agencies. Whoever is in the business of security or the corporates who hire security, separate so much money goes to security cess or a criminal justice fund. Let's call it criminal justice fund. Let it go. Let it be spent into judicial infrastructure, police station infrastructure, and prisons. We not even talked about prisons till now. We don't have the time in this session because I have to close at 6 and I have a next commitment to go to. But we haven't even talked about prisons. And I have a whole experience of prison reforms. How prisoners, if well-led prison, can pay for itself. Why are we wasting time in the prisons? Why don't we give work to them? Why can't they work? But our law and rule says, no, you cannot make an under trial work. Why? Why are you wasting his time? Give him work inside. Give him work. And let that earning of that prison go back to the prison welfare fund to fund their rehabilitation, education, correction, so many things. Healthcare can be. So these are called policies which need to be addressed. So this country, we go at the district level, we can form these PP forms at the district level, called the hub and the spoke, where prison representative, police representative, prosecution representative, media representative, public. So the media also writes with sense of responsibility. It's called the PPP model. The police, the prisons, the prosecution, the people, the press, right? If we can, judicially, even the district judicial representative can be. They every month meet. Now I'm on a wrap-up solution because I have to finish at 6. If they can meet at the district level, and they can meet at the state level, and they can meet at the national level, solutions start getting, rather than accusing each other, we will work together as a criminal justice system. Currently, we do not have a hub and spoke system of coming together. We don't talk to each other. Police doesn't talk to the judiciary, judiciary doesn't talk to police. Say, oh, how can we talk to each other? We can as a criminal justice system, but without compromising justice, we can talk to each other. We don't have to talk at each other. We don't have to talk at each other. We can talk with each other to find out what's going on. After all, it is victim-centric. It's not criminal-centric. Victim-centric automatically will be either so that the victim is not continuing to be victimized. And the criminal knows if he's committed a crime and there's evidence on record, he's not going to go away. And if you still want to be out on bail, you'll be on conditional bail. You will report, let's say social work, NGO, don't want to go to police station, have certain identified NGOs, which they report to for rehabilitation, where they go and serve the community. They're asked to do some work. And they mark their attendance. You think they're good. And the sureties are bound. Sureties are sometimes stock sureties, professional security. They can take money to be a surety. So we can have systems. These crimes will fall. The Gunda Act properly applied. The laws are properly applied. The postings properly done. Anti-corruption systems in police stations strengthened. Vigilance strengthened. It will go a long way in reforming the whole criminal justice system. You lawyers, you budding lawyers have an important role to play. You are officers of the court. You are officers of the court. You need to defend the truth concerning a victim. But the accused wants you to undo the truth. And you think that's your profession. That's your profession. And you'll say, yes, it's under the Advocates Act. If somebody comes to me, I have to defend. You defend, but you should know what you're doing. You must know what you're doing. So friends, let this be session 1. Maybe we need to have a continued session one day. But as I said, I'd committed till 6 o'clock. And we've had an interesting session. I'm a law student myself of your campus law school, by the way. I do not know whether Professor Mithil was there. Raman was there, by junior maybe. No. I did my law college from the evening law campus from Mandir Marg. Where did you do it from, Raman?
Yeah, I did it from Punjab University, your other university.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. But I think doing law was just best for me as a professional. It did a lot of good because it strengthened my analysis and understanding of the application of law. And now as an administrator, what helps me is immediately, I go back immediately to the law. If a proposal comes, my officer on special duty, Mr. Niti Das, is just brilliant. Something comes, we pick up the law, we pick up the rule, and we read the law and we interpret it. Nobody can judge us because you get into the habit of going to the law. And then if that is silent, we go to the judgment and we go to the website and download the latest judgment of Supreme Court or NGT or High Court, and we are able to deliver justice. So legal education is very useful even in general application of administration. But also remember, you're all officers of the court. First, you're there to do justice and not to do injustice. I leave this to your own conscience to answer as law students. Good luck and thank you so much for inviting me.